Hey, what's going on, Family? This is Spade. Welcome. This is going to be a different video than the theory videos that I normally post, in that this is more of a ramble between from and a connection to Lost. There's going to be a lot of theoretical things introduced. There will be spoilers. If you haven't had a chance yet, check out the channel membership. If that's not your thing, that's okay. Also, there's a way you can support with the applause button. Give me a thumb up, comment in the comment section, and please share to your social media wherever you frequent, in addition to subscribing and clicking the notification bell. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the comment section after the video. Whether you've seen Lost or not, it doesn't matter. I'll explain about Lost, a few details, and it will connect to From. If you look at it like that, Lost and From are basically the same show. It's just a few details different. So when it comes to Lost, the creators of Lost made From. When making Lost, they wanted to go into one direction and maybe they didn't. They took the core idea of Lost and made From. It makes sense as far as physics. First, we're going to go to the idea of time travel. Lost centered around the island, the compass. So Richard gave Locke his compass, instructing him to give it back to him the next time Locke saw him. Locke time shifted to 1954. He gave the compass to Richard in order to prove he was from the future. 2007, the man in black posing as Locke told Richard to give the compass to Locke, thereby creating a time loop, like a self-contained paradox. The compass was a navigation tool that helped the helicopter to get to and from the island, and they used the compass to get around the island. So the compass was like the main thing as far as navigation. The compass was about navigation. In a previous video, I went over the idea of you cannot time travel to the past. You can go backwards in time, you can go forward in time, but you cannot go to the past. As far as our perception as three-dimensional beings, if you time travel backwards in time, let's say to 2001, you'll be going to what appears to be the past, but it's actually your future. So you are unable to go to the past. However, if you have the ability of time travel, you can travel forward in time and backwards in time. Gravity is the main component to time. Because of gravity, time works different in space as it does on Earth. Time works different on Mars as it does on Earth because of gravity. Gravity is the key to how time works. And the effect that gravity has on particles is what causes particles to time travel forward in time and backwards in time theoretically. So if you can figure out how particles using gravity can time travel forward or backwards or at different rates, you can understand time travel. And also, scientists believe that wormholes are what allow particles to time travel with the effect of gravity on them. The compass and the island are what's important, not necessarily the events and the characters. So think of Lost as far as the lore of Lost, not the events or the characters. So the compass, the island, the man in black, but not any of the events. If you have not seen Lost, you don't have to go watch it.
Imagine that this folder is a dimensional plane. Now, assuming that it is no height and no depth, what would this mean? It would mean that it's a one-dimensional world. So if, hypothetically, an organism was living inside of it, it would only be able to move in a linear path forward and backwards in a straight line. Now, if we go to the second dimension, we have two dimensions. We have width and we have length. So hypothetically, if an organism lived inside of here, then it would be able to move up, down, left, right, and anywhere else in between. And a two-dimensional world is comprised of an infinite series of one-dimensional worlds stacked upon each other. just as our three-dimensional world, which has depth and length and height, is comprised of an infinite series of two-dimensional worlds. So, now that I have stacked many folders upon each other, we have three dimensions. We have depth, we have length, and we have width. Now what happens if you keep going on from here on out? We would have a four-dimensional world, but what exactly is a fourth dimension? In order to understand this, we need to understand how dimensions are perceived. We live in the three-dimensional world, but despite that, we actually view things to be two-dimensionally. Take a perfect sphere, for example. If you're looking at a sphere, it looks just like a regular two-dimensional circle. The only way that you can tell it's an actual sphere instead of a circle is because of the hues of light on it. So just like in a two-dimensional world, if a organism in the two-dimensional world was looking upon a circle, the light would make it appear to be lighter at one end and darker in the middle. Also, if an object is moving closer and farther away from you, you don't actually perceive that it's getting closer and farther away. You see that it's getting smaller or larger, and then you assume that it's getting either farther away or closer. But let's say that an object was to grow in perfect equilibrium, so that it was growing at the same speed that it was shrinking as you move it farther away. Then you would not be able to tell, without any lights or if there were details on the object, that it's moving or growing at all. You may have assumed that since we perceive things to be in two dimensions, that a two-dimensional organism would see in one dimension. So, as we're watching this rubber band expand as it moves farther away from this little organism in the two-dimensional world, it does not actually perceive anything is happening to it because it's growing at the same speed that it's moving farther away. But since we can actually see it from the three-dimensional world and perceive things to be in two dimensions, we can see things for how they actually are. The reason that the two-dimensional organism doesn't see things the way they really are is because the two-dimensional organism sees things in one dimension, just how we, three-dimensional creatures, see things in two dimensions. So in a way, we don't really see our world the way it truly is. A four-dimensional creature, however, seeing our three-dimensional world in three dimensions, would be able to see through things. Would be able to see absolutely everything, just as we could see if there was several organisms spread along a 2D environment on your floor. You would be able to see inside houses. You would be able to see inside of people. So if a two-dimensional world, a flat surface, is just made of an infinite amount of lines, then the 3D world is just made out of an infinite amount of planes. So the 4D world, logically, is made out of an infinite amount of 3D objects. Though they're not just put together like you would like building blocks. That's not how the 4D world is. That would just be 3D again. So in order to understand this, we need to understand the logical progression of mathematics in our world. Imagine that this connects piece represents the first dimension. It's simply a straight line, which is basically what the first dimension looks like. And if you add 3 more of these straight lines and connect them so that adjacent sides are perpendicular and opposite sides are parallel, then you have the basic shape of the second dimension. You have a square. Now if you keep going from here and you add it so that there's a total of 4 squares, and all adjacent sides are perpendicular, and all opposite sides are parallel, then you end up with, obviously, a cube. So, if you tried to keep going from here, and you would have a 4-dimensional basic shape, you would have what's called a tesseract. Now, I cannot show you a tesseract, but you need to understand that it's basically 4 cubes that are within each other that have all adjacent sides perpendicular and all opposite sides parallel. Yet there are 4 lines connecting to each vertex. So a tesseract would look somewhat like this picture. Now that's not exactly what it looks like because this is a 2-dimensional depiction, and obviously not all of the lines are straight. So I cannot show you what a tesseract actually looks like because we cannot perceive things in the 3rd dimension. You cannot even imagine what a tesseract looks like. You cannot in your mind picture the fourth dimension or a fourth dimensional shape. And you can keep going on from the fourth dimension even. You can go to the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension, the 71st dimension. It doesn't matter. Theoretically, there are an infinite amount of spatial dimensions. A common misconception of the fourth dimension is that the fourth dimension is time. Now, while some argue that by going forward and backwards in time, if you move forward the same distance and backwards the same, then you would end up in the same place you started, just like in the fourth dimension. And while that may seem logical, if you think about it, it really doesn't make sense. If you imply that the fourth dimension is actually time, well, first of all, time is not spatial. There's a difference between space and time, quite obviously. And assuming that all dimensions are according to a pattern, then that doesn't really make sense either, because saying the fourth dimension is time, every dimension has time in it. So that would mean that the fourth dimension is special in some way. Third dimension, which will form a four-dimensional universe, basically. So what this kind of means is that our three-dimensional world is within a four-dimensional world, and the four-dimensional world is within a fifth-dimensional world, and so on. Now, I did say that nothing can be truly infinite, but if this is true, and a dimension is really within another dimension, within another dimension, within another dimension, then I'm implying that there's an infinite amount of dimensions, which is the only problem I really have with this theory. I'm not sure if it ever stops, or if infinity is really even possible. We don't know that.
When it comes to our dimension, there is length, width, and height, which makes something three-dimensional. We see everything in length, width, height, and then you got time. So we see time in a linear fashion. Because we read left to right, and some people up and down or vertical, the starting point is usually to the left, which will be October 12th, which will be quote unquote yesterday. Right now, October 13th will be the present. October 14th will be the future in a straight line. When it comes to our planet, without using an address, or without using a reference point like a store, a tree, a mountain, you're able to get around our planet Earth using longitude and latitude grid coordinates. There's different types of grids, but the main way you get around our world is with longitude and latitude grid coordinates. In addition to longitude and latitude grid coordinates, you also need elevation. Longitude, latitude, and elevation, if you get those grid coordinates, you can find a location anywhere in the world on our planet. However, with longitude, latitude, and elevation, which is space, if I include time with that, then I can give you a grid coordinate with time, also known as space-time coordinate, where you can be at a specific place on a map, at a specific elevation, at a specific time. Time being like October 13, 2024 at 1:13 a.m. So using the space-time grid coordinate, you can be in a specific place, specific time. And if you have the ability to time travel, you can go forward and backwards in time. And I can meet you at a certain longitude, latitude, and elevation, which includes on top of a mountain or in the sea. We've went into space-time continuum. So everything in life is based off of causality, meaning cause and effect. Your parents had relations, conceived, that's the cause. The effect was you being born. Instead of looking at time from a 3 or 4 dimensional point of view, time on a line or timeline, we should look at time as being a bunch of different lines, a bunch of causality, which the best way to look at it is as an ocean. Instead of focusing on creating new timelines and creating a bunch of lines that go here and there, and you create a new timeline whenever you time travel, even for a second, time is really more like an ocean filled with waves, and those waves are causality, as in cause and effect. So every time you time travel, you're creating a wave. Anytime you do not time travel, you're creating a wave. And time is more like an ocean for a 10th dimensional being that can somewhat, instead of traveling on a line, can almost surf and ride the waves throughout the ocean of the sea of time. Time and space taken together are said to form space-time continuum. And with time being an ocean full of different timelines all connected together, everything that will be and can be, Lost was having them go across an ocean of time to the island and back using the compass. And the only way that you can actually truly understand time in that regard, as far as space-time continuum, is viewing time as being an ocean with waves. And in the center of that ocean of time would be an island like Lost. So if you have an island like Lost in the middle of the sea of time with causality happening all the time, for you to travel the space-time continuum using latitude, longitude, elevation, and time, you would basically be surfing the waves or traveling over it with a helicopter using a special compass. And then when you get to the island where all of the waves and water of time converges on the island, you would use the compass to navigate the island. With Lost, it just basically focused on getting to and from the island using the compass and navigating the island with a compass. So where From comes in is, instead of focusing on the island, From is, in my opinion, focusing on the water with the waves and causality. And someone like, let's say, the boy in white would be able to leave the island and traverse the ocean of causality in the space-time continuum and surf it, not just with a compass to navigate to and from and navigate around from, but he would also need to have From or the island of Lost as like the beacon on where to get back to in order to restart whenever trying to time travel. He would need something to help him find the island, like a lighthouse. That's where the connection from and Lost come together. With From, they're going to have to use the lighthouse to help them navigate the ocean of time. When Tabitha was pushed out of the lighthouse, she was pushed into the real world. The boy in white was able to control where, longitude and latitude, and elevation and time where Tabitha was, where the hikers found her. Because he had control over space-time, he put her in the right place at the right time to be found by the hikers, go to the hospital, leave the hospital, follow him to the coffee shop. She left the coffee shop, went to the Catholic church, looked in the lunchbox, saw the address, went to Henry's home, talked to Henry, went into the car, was going to get ready to drive to the park, got into the accident, back and From. The only way you could set all that up is if you are able to see possibilities like it's an ocean with lots of waves. And you're using the lighthouse to look and see what's out there, to see what you could do as far as a possibility to have all those different things take place and then bring Tabitha back at a certain point in time. So the lighthouse and From is what helps get to and from the waves, and you using something like a compass or a tool to navigate the waves of the ocean where all of the waves are taking place as far as causality. And because there's the navigation tool of a compass to know where to go in the water as far as latitude, longitude, elevation, and time, and help you get back to the island with the lighthouse, that, my friend, is a simplistic way of saying how From and Lost are connected. It's not really anything overt and in your face. With From, it's more of surfing the waves of time in the infinite sea of time in the space-time continuum, and understanding that if you're going to travel the waves of time and time travel in the space-time continuum, you have to go back to From and reset using the lighthouse to go back out. The beacon in Lost was the lighthouse, and From has the tower. There was like a mirror wheel in the lighthouse on the Lost Island that resembled a giant compass. Both of them had a lighthouse. It's just that the lighthouse in From, I think, is more along the lines of the sea and the waves of the ocean. I think it's two sides of a chessboard when it comes to From. One side is able to see all possibilities, to tell the creatures what to do and when. And then you got the good side, which could be the boy in white. But when it comes to science fiction, characters that usually wear white are evil. So we really don't know who is quote unquote good just yet. But for the good side to tell people what to do, how to escape from Bill by killing the boy or pushing Tabitha out of a lighthouse, even maybe being able to tell Jade or show Jade visions on how to gain enlightenment. In order to do that, you'd have to be able to see steps ahead as far as cause and effect, to tell people to do some cause to have a desired effect. And the only way you could do that is if you're able to see the possibilities, as if you're looking out into the ocean of time, of space-time, and you're able to say, okay, I see that wave right there. If you all do this wave right here, this cause, if you do this cause, will have this effect. And now you're telling people to do something, like with the voices telling Sarah to kill the boy, or doing something like the boy in white pushing Tabitha out of the lighthouse to have a desired effect. So in my opinion, I think it's not really time travel per se. It's just the idea of seeing possibilities to have a desired outcome. So like in the scenario I laid out with the ocean, the boy in white could use the ability to be able to see everything that can be and could be as far as a possibility to determine what cause to go about doing to have a desired effect. Because everything is like causality as far as our existence. So time is just a collection of events, also known as causality, which is cause and effect. So if the boy in white wanted Henry into Fromville, then the only way to really get Henry into Fromville would be for, let's say, the boy in white sent a vision to Miranda while she was in LSD and showed her the faraway tree with the bottles. Then as Miranda, Victor, and Eloise are driving to the bottle tree in the park, they enter into Fromville. Miranda and kids come into Fromville. Miranda doesn't see Tabitha anywhere. So Miranda, because she had visions of Tabitha saving the children, and she believes that Tabitha failed, she decides to save the children and tells Victor to hide from Christopher, who was trying to take out Victor. Miranda ended up trying to go save the children, lost her life, and Eloise, according to Victor, is no longer with us either. It may be that all of that effect happened because the boy in white sent Miranda the cause, which is the vision. And all of that may have happened so that when bringing Tabitha into Fromville, Tabitha would do all the steps that she did based off of Victor, the cause, telling Tabitha about his mother. And then why bring Henry in now, which is the effect of Tabitha, the cause, being pushed out the lighthouse? We don't know, but it could be for Henry to give information to people in Fromville to do something at the end of this season. And it sounds like a lot. When you think about playing chess and having chess moves, there would be a lot of steps in order to set something up. So just to answer, the purpose of time traveling From would be to be able to set something up in order to have an effect like we've seen so far with the creatures laying in the road as a cause, to have the effect of the EMTs exiting the ambulance to go see about her. And so she can like slice their throats, and put Boyd into a situation where he has to pick and choose who to save to leave them alone with Randall, who the target was. Because remember, Randall was telling Boyd that the woman in the nurse outfit was coming to his bus almost every night and just smiling, standing there. They probably were waiting for the opportune time for Boyd to be in the bus with Randall. So it wasn't necessarily to just look at Randall. It was to wait for Boyd to be in the bus, and they know that was the night that the ambulance was going to come in town and they could actually get Randall. To get to the island was very specific. From may have more options from all entries from different locations, must be portable, but time frame specific, like lost. I think from is a combination of different forces, including people wanting something from it. If I had to say what originally created from, or the pocket universe, my really large theory is, it's going to sound crazy, as a pocket universe was originally the Garden of Eden. When the Garden of Eden was created in Genesis, Adam and Eve were there. Adam ate the apple after Eve. And then when God cast them out of the garden and moved Eden, it was a pocket universe that was moved. With moving the pocket universe, or a Garden of Eden, the entity, God, or some force, as it's constantly moving it, it's like sucking things into it. And that's the reason why you have Colony House in the town. They're from like different time periods as the Garden of Eden or Fromville is moving. That's the reason why you have a lighthouse with no ocean. Or you have log cabins that are in the middle of nowhere, is because Fromville is constantly being moved, similar to how the Garden of Eden was moved from its location. Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And then I think that was guarding the Garden of Eden and also guarding the tree of life and death is similar to like the boy in white. So as people are getting sucked into this Garden of Eden, the boy in white doesn't know how to help them leave, because leaving is not that simple, because you can leave and get sucked back in. The true question is, do they destroy this Garden of Eden / pocket universe, or do they have to do something in order to defeat something inside so that no one else has to get sucked into it? That's what From's purpose is. It's not really necessarily a purpose per se. It's just a place that was created a long time ago, and it has morphed and molded into different things, and morphed and started to consume different things as it's been moved to different places. So in other words, the island that I'm speaking of, that's like From, it's not stationary in the sea of time. It's moving in addition to the water moving. So they're trapped in From, but they have to be released. They were brought in for a purpose. It's just that I think that they have to achieve a state of enlightenment to be able to fully understand what's required of them. And a lot of them, they're not able to really perceive instruction from this force or this entity, because similar to like how Jade's getting these visions, but he doesn't understand. So in the Bible, people were getting visions from angels and visions from God, and they didn't fully understand what they were being shown or told, because the intellect of these higher level beings, God, angel, whatever, there's so many tiers above us that they try to break it down Barney style, and we still miss it. So that's why I say 10th dimensional beings when talking about the boy in white, because they're so advanced that them simply having a conversation with us, it's going to blow our mind and it's going to lose us, because we're just not even close to where they are intellectually. So when it comes to civilizations, there's a Kardashev scale, which is a classification system that measures a civilization's technological advancement and level of development based on its ability to harness energy. There's type 1, type 2, type 3. So type 1 can access and store all energy available on a planet. Type 2 can do that, plus the energy of a star. Type 3, energy from galaxy, including every star and a black hole. Earth, we're a type 0 because we dumb. Even if you're smart, you're dumb compared to other intelligence in the universe, and other intelligence as far as 5th dimensional beings and higher than that. So for them to talk to us is equivalent to you and I talking to a dog. When talking to a dog, you can give a dog certain commands, but it can't really understand what you're saying. It's going off tonality. And you can have the dog do tricks. You can say roll over, play fetch, but you can't have a conversation with a dog about From and the dog to actually understand, because it doesn't understand English. And we perceive the dog's intelligence level not to be high enough to have an actual dialogue with the dog. A 10th dimensional being, a being from a civilization that's type 4 and greater than that, the same way that we would kind of like perceive a dog to be unintelligent is how they would perceive us to be unintelligent. So they would show us stuff as far as visions, but we wouldn't really be able to understand exactly what's going on because they're just so far ahead as far as intelligence. So they can show us maybe visions and pictures. A common theme in From is like pictures to be able to communicate things. They can give us visions and show us pictures, but we won't really be able to get it because they're showing us a small piece of the puzzle, and the puzzle is the size of a city. They're giving us breadcrumbs, Barney-style breakdowns and baby steps because we can't really fully comprehend how they think. We're playing 2D chess, they're playing 5D chess, 10D chess. From which was created in the beginning of time. It's always been there, but forces are drawing people into From for multiple purposes. There's multiple players in this quote unquote game. It's a struggle because the writers are trying to develop too many people when there's really only 3 plot lines, and they're trying to keep it simple, but they're keeping it too simple. And now in season 3, they're going from crawling like season 1 and 2 to where now in season 3, they're running. And I guess in the future seasons, if there are any, they're going to be sprinting, and hopefully by season 5 or 6, we'll be flying. So no longer needing to take baby steps, we'll be like just flat out flying. We only have the capacity to use 10% of our brains. I've heard it's less than that. We're using less than that. Anytime, let's say the power goes out, like with the people in Florida right now, in certain parts of Florida, and with, let's say, Hurricane Katrina in the past, anytime there's a loss of like electricity, people are cut off from resources, including police officers. People are kind of like secluded from the rest of civilization. Theft goes up, murder goes up, rape goes up. People get kidnapped and enslaved. People start stealing resources. People become rude and evil. And for the most part, it's kind of like survival of the fittest. So we as a human species are like that when there's a loss of law and order. So law and order is needed, or people start becoming animalistic, barbaric, start stepping on and over people in order to get things. I mean, look at The Walking Dead, for example. Look at any post-civilization apocalypse show or movie. People are really quick to want to hurt each other for things that are simple like bread. So if we are like that, and we are savage by nature, there's just no way that we would be able to fully have an open and honest and complete dialogue with a higher level being.
Oh my God!
10th dimensional player, just like the voices Sarah hears. If you go back to season 1, episode like 1 or 2, Sarah is sitting out there mean mugging the Matthews as they drive into town. And they told Sarah to stand out there and witness that, to let her know that what they're telling her about taking the boy's life for them to go home. She said that when she sat out there talking to Father Khatri, that when she saw that the voices were right, she knew this was the way to go home. And that's when she went to go try to take Ethan out. They said that if you don't take Ethan out, then your brother's going to die. And he did.
Slayer.
The voices were 100% right. They definitely are 10th dimensional, where they can see cause and effect or causality. They can see possibilities. And if they say, do this thing and you'll go home, you got to do this thing to go home. And that's why we're on season 3, because Sarah did not do the thing for everyone to go home. Everything's about causality. So far, the voices that have been talking to the creatures and the voices that have been talking to Sarah, whatever is trying to communicate with Elgin, they're telling correct information. It's just being able to understand what's going on. I mean, even with Elgin, the kimono lady has been trying to communicate with him several times, I guess, drowning him to wake him up, touching his face in the last episode to maybe wake him up. Maybe like waking him up is the only way that he can truly help her. The cicadas were taking people out in their sleep. So maybe him staying up will help him become more enlightened. Maybe it'll get to a point where he no longer needs sleep. I mean, who knows? What first started me thinking about time travel was just the dates in the lighthouse, dates in the bottles, and the faraway tree. They wouldn't put those years in those bottles and years on the in the lighthouse if we weren't dealing with some type of aspect of time. I thought it was going to be Tabitha as a time traveler. I was wrong about that. Sometimes we got some theories that manifest themselves as fact. Other times it's a comedy. Yep, sometimes we're on it, sometimes we're not. It's looking like Tabitha is there and back again, and all we got was a little taste of the outside world, and she brought back Henry. We're literally back to square one before she got pushed out of the lighthouse. Her adjusting to the new environment that's in the future episode description. It's just her adjusting to Fromville, but she's been there.
The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera.